This is Tech Talk Detroit with Brian Spurgeon and Chuck Lobert. Tech Talk Detroit brings you the latest in tech news and Detroit happenings every week.
Talk Detroit, Chuck here with Brian. Brian, how you doing?
Doing great as always, and we're getting a little bit of an Indian summer here, so I always got to give my little weather update. And
right,
70s this week, and looking forward to one last week outside. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we're 72 on Saturday, so I'm anything over 65, and I'm happy.
Do you anything good?
No, not a lot. Just the normal. I started a new diet. I don't think I've mentioned that yet, but doing an anti-inflammatory diet, and it's horrible. Basically means that if something tastes good, you're not allowed to eat it.
That's every diet.
Well, yeah, this is like extra that diet, but yeah, it's it kind of sucks. But I have been feeling better. I've been doing it now for about, I think, 3 weeks, and just this week I'm starting to feel a bit better. So that's good. And I've lost a ton of weight on it, so that's good. But yeah, it kind of sucks too. Yeah, but that's about it for me. That's all that's new. Other than that, it's just been working and working on the new office a lot, which is exciting because we're getting close. So that's pretty cool. I think we're probably about a month away at this point. Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like it's been a while since we've sat here and done this. I was out of town for the better part of 2 weeks off the grid doing a hiking trip up in the UP. So I did over 60 miles of hiking and fishing, and it was a much needed trip, but excited to get back and get things rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like a great trip. I think it sounds like it'd be a really good time.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. If nobody's ever been up that way, I went to Porcupine Mountain State Park, and it doesn't even feel like you're in the state anymore. It's just unbelievable when you go up there how different it feels than it does here. So
yeah, I've never been up into the real Porcupines, but Copper Harbor, I used to go there quite a bit and love it up there. It's just, it's I always describe it as you look one way and you feel like you're in California. You look another way, you feel like you're like, I don't know, in Tennessee or something. It's just,
it's true. It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. But anyways, what we thought we would talk about today is when it comes to changing, if you're working with a managed service provider today and you're wondering what does it look like if I change, why should I think of changing, all of that kind of stuff. That's something that I get a lot of questions on, as I meet with people and I'm talking to them about potentially making a change to come to work with us. Is one of the big things they want to know is, well, what is this going to mean? How am I going to be affected? Is this an easy change? Is there going to have to be a lot of work put into it? So thought we would take a little bit of time today and kind of answer some of those questions and just give some background, I guess, around what it should look like, and it's really should not be a real difficult process. So I thought we could maybe start with the first part of that is really, if you're working with somebody today, should you be thinking of changing? And frankly, if you're working with somebody today and you're happy and you're getting the support you deserve, the answer is probably no. But when does that change, and when should you start to think about changing? So, I think the first thing would certainly be, if you are unhappy, if you're getting poor service, then that's certainly a reason to start thinking about a change, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the glaring thing is obviously if the level of support you're paying for, if you ever feel like you're not receiving it, then obviously it's always good to have a conversation with your provider to see if it's something that you guys can shore up. But ultimately, we're in a service industry, so when you're not getting what you pay for, that's enough reason right there, I think, to start looking. But I think beyond that, IT is much more than just break fix. This computer's broke. Can you fix it? At the end of the day, there's a lot of people, a lot of companies that can fix things, but ultimately, I think you have to really see, does your IT partner, are they allowing you to execute your business growth strategy? So if you have this, every company has goals that they want to reach, and ultimately, most of us now are using technology in order to get there. So is your IT partner helping enable that, or are they really a barrier to that? And I think that's kind of the question to me. And I think that's kind of where it should start.
Yeah, so I think a lot of times that comes up with, are they keeping up to date with the latest technology? Are they keeping up to date with, what's out there in your industry, in your company? If you use a particular piece of software, do they know that software? Do they, have any kind of a relationship with the people that run that software? Different things like that. And then, beyond that, are they keeping your systems up and running so that when you need to work, you're able to work? Are they quick to respond when you have a problem? There's lots of things that can go into that, but a lot of that tends to be, what we'll see sometimes is these companies that get stuck in, kind of set in their ways, so to speak, and they feel like whatever the way that they've done it for the past 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is just the right way to do it, and they're not continuing to learn the new technologies and keep up to date with all of the new stuff that's out there in the market.
Yeah, that's very true. At the end of the day, IT is ever changing. So if the company isn't keeping up with the current trends, then there's a lot of concern there. And I think beyond that as well is, are they meeting with you regularly to discuss your business? Are they involved in the sense of they know where you're going, and they're implementing solutions that help you get there? So I think if you haven't sat down and met with your IT company in quite some time, and you don't ever hear from them, then I think that should be a pause for concern.
Yeah. So kind of phrase it another way. Are they being a partner for you, or are they simply a vendor? So a partner is going to know your business to a certain aspect. They're going to be able to present you with a roadmap. They're going to be able to talk to you about what's upcoming, help you with budgeting, all of those things that a CIO would do. That's those virtual CIO services that would be built into most managed service agreements. So are they keeping up on that part of it? Because if they're not, then they're not being proactive. They're not helping your business at that point. Really, they're just providing the same service day in and day out, and maybe that's what you're paying for, but maybe it's not. That's where it's really looking at what you're paying for, what's included in your agreement, and are you happy with the amount that you're paying? And really, that's probably the other point where it might be time to look is, are you at a point where the cost that you're paying just doesn't simply fit into your budget anymore? So that's, it's always something else that you got to consider is, sometimes your budgets change, things come up, but I think the big caveat there is, if you're currently happy with your service, then, hopefully you've got a good enough relationship with your, the partner that you're working with, that you can talk to them about it before you start going and looking, because maybe there's something they can do, whether it be short term or long term, to help you so that it does fit into the budget more. So I think the real crux is just simply, are you getting what you're paying for, and are you happy?
I know you've had several discussions just with the way this year has gone, and obviously there's certain industries that have really struggled with this current climate that we're working through this year. And I know you've done, you've got above and beyond to make sure that we're there to help them out. That if the financials are the only roadblock, that you've done a good job of making sure that we can remove that and keep things moving forward. So I think that's key, is to have a company that's willing to work with you, not against you. And one thing too that you had mentioned of, making sure you're getting what you're paid for. You should never just assume that you are getting what you paid for. You should be getting evidence as such, however that may be, whether it's, regular agreed upon meetings and you're covering data and looking at reports, or just automated stuff being sent to you. You should be seeing confirmation that your backups are happening every night. And you should see confirmation that all the workstations are patched. And if you're not seeing this now, it's not to say that the company isn't doing what you're paying them for, but you should ask, to see that. I think that's information that any business owner should be receiving from their IT provider.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and to your point, we have had that, and that's, frankly, that's just kind of been the history of Vision, is we've always tried very, very hard to be a partner for our clients and not simply a vendor. So, we've had it, years ago. I remember we had a client that they lost one of their biggest clients, and, obviously that was a big hit to their bottom line, and they approached us, and, thankfully we had that relationship where instead of just going out and finding a cheaper solution, they came to us and said, here's here's our problem. We basically said, well, how long do you expect to need this for? And they said, it's probably going to take us 6 months to regain that revenue. So we, basically cut their bill in half for 6 months. And it's nice to be able to be in a position to do that. But, to me, that's just part of being a partner, and part of, when we tell people that we are an extension of their business, that's a part of it. Is, we've got to be able to be there to try to help them out. So, it's different when somebody comes to you and says that they're unhappy with service. That's a different discussion. But when it's simply, we love you guys, we're really happy with the service. However, such and such happened, whether it's COVID or, something else, and now we just simply don't have the extra cash. So, then in those scenarios, generally we're able to work something out and be in a position to help them out. So it's just part of being a partner. But I think the next thing to talk about is, if you are at a point where you're thinking, okay, well, maybe I do need to look at a change, I'm getting bad service or whatever it is, what do I need to think about now as I'm out there looking at other providers, and, how do I compare them? And, because I think the latest thing I heard was something like 120 managed service providers in the Detroit metro area. So obviously you're going to get 120 different proposals if you reach out to all of them. So how do you know what you're looking at, and how do you know which one's the right one for you? And I think that's really a big topic to consider is, when you're looking at, I know you've helped companies before kind of compare between different providers. What are you looking for when you have those meetings, and when you look at other proposals and you meet with these other companies and such, what should these people be looking at to determine, is this a good company to think about switching to?
Well, I think there's a couple things there. I think it starts with being honest with yourself and acknowledging the type of company that you are, and understanding what priority you put on technology, because I think that's the first step is being honest with that. And if you are the type of company that you're looking at IT as solely a cost and expenditure, and your goal is to just be able to call somebody when a system breaks and get it fixed, and beyond that, it's have somebody on standby on retainer. That's a completely different subset of IT companies that are going to be available for that. For us, we don't fit that business model at all. We're very much more so aligned with companies that are very technology strategic. So our best relationships are with those who do value technology, who embrace it, who want to do more with it. That's the best relationships we have for a company like us. So I think the first step is to just understand where you're at. And, both scenarios are okay. Every business is different. Every business has different requirements, but, there's no point in pursuing, these IT companies such as ourselves that specialize in the cloud and on all this security and 24/7 and really put an emphasis on uptime, because it's just frankly going to be out of probably the budget of what you're looking to spend. So I think, having that budget, having that expectation up front goes a long way. And I think being honest and upfront with these companies right off the bat, you'll be able to get honest feedback of whether or not they think they can move forward with you. So I think that would be step one. But beyond that, I think, you got to treat it as an interview. So are these companies prepared when they come in? When you have your first meeting, are they able to answer questions that you're asking them initially, as it pertains to the business and the agreement? Not necessarily technology, that comes later, the technical stuff. But initially, do they understand their business? How long have they been in business? I think is a key. I think, we see a lot of competitors pop up that they've been doing it for a year or two, and chances are that's probably a 1 or 2 man shop, and that's nothing against them. But if you're a company that has 100, 200 people, there's no way that one or 2 man shop's going to be able to give you the service probably that you need. So I think, length of the company being in business is key. And then also I think companies that want to really do a thorough process is something that I think is important. I think there's a lot of companies that before they've even stepped foot in your building, took a look at your infrastructure, took the time to interview the business owner and key decision makers, they're able to put a proposal in front of you of a whole solution of, a whole new server infrastructure and this whole cloud thing. And to me, that's not doing you any justice. I don't think all businesses are created equal. I think every business has unique requirements, unique strategies in place. And I think that, if you're that type of company, you should have an IT provider that's willing to custom tailor a solution that it co-aligns with your business plan. So, I would be very wary of companies that come in and tell you, this is the solution. We have a box. We are going to fit you in this box, and we'll figure everything out after. So I think ultimately that boils down to, does the onboarding process also involve a thorough assessment of your infrastructure to identify any kind of recommendations or, how to move forward? But I think, the key is focus on the agreement first and, address any projects and such separate. So, I mean, maybe you have some different feedback, but that's ultimately, to me, would be the best advice I could give.
Yeah, and I think that's all great advice. It always cracks me up when I walk into somewhere to meet for the first time, and they say, well, this other company is going to do this, and they're going to put in these firewalls and this cloud solution, and I'll say, okay, well, so they've already come in and done an assessment. Well, no, but that's just what they do. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It always just it drives me crazy that anybody would just walk in and go, okay, here's the right solution for you before knowing anything about the business. But I think aside from that, it's really kind of going through the agreement with a fine-tooth comb too, making sure that you're comparing apples to apples. I know I had one recently where they said that our proposal was, it was like 5% higher than the current company that they were with. And when I looked at the current company's proposal, they were only providing support remotely and from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. We were doing it 24/7 remote and on site. So obviously that is well worth the extra 5%. So it's different things like that. I think just making sure that you're actually reading through and exactly what you're going to be getting, making sure that it's what fits for the business. Maybe your business only needs support 8 through 5 Monday through Friday, and that's great for you. But if you need support off of out of those hours, then what are you going to do? You're going to be paying hourly, so it's best to have it covered. I think the other thing is, if you are unhappy, what kind of out do you have? Are they asking you to sign on to a contract before you really know who they are and what kind of service they provide? And if that's the case, is there an out if you get into it and you're unhappy? I think that's a big thing to consider too, because regardless of the amount of research you do and everything, you're still, at some point kind of making a leap of faith, so to speak, and saying, okay, I'm going to trust that this is the right move. But if you end up being wrong about that, are you stuck for the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years because you're in a contract, or do you have the option to leave? And I think doing a lot of research is always key. Talking to current clients, looking at their reviews, checking out their website, all of that kind of stuff too, I think is certainly important.
And, I think it's important too, is you got to look at who is the IT company partnering with, right? If you're a big Microsoft shop, Microsoft servers, Office 365, Windows desktops, your IT provider should absolutely be a Microsoft partner. If they weren't advertising that they are a Microsoft partner, I would be concerned, because ultimately that's going to mean potentially that you're going to have longer support times. At the end of the day, it's impossible to know everything, right? As much as I would love to sit here and tell you I can handle anything in the Microsoft world, and at times I might think I can, there is times where, believe it or not, I might need to put in a ticket with Microsoft, and that's the response time solely based on our partner level.
I thought that Microsoft put tickets in with you.
Well, they do, but there is an occasion where, maybe there's a new update that I didn't get to read the release notes on, and I might be a little confused, but you get the gist. It's I think it's important to look at the relationships the IT company has made, because that says a lot about who they are.
Absolutely. So, I think the last thing to really talk about is, you've decided you need to make a change. You found the right partner. Now you're going to make the change. How should that switch happen? That's always the other big question I get is, okay, yes, we're going to move forward, but now what? And so, I think it always starts with kind of putting the two companies together, right? Usually we'll ask them to do some kind of like an introduction over email, letting, the old company know, hey, we've decided to make a change. We're going to start working with this company. introduce, and then from there, generally almost everybody in this area, at least, that is in managed services, we all pretty much know each other and are friendly and are able to work together. And even in those types of situations where we lose a client to them or they lose a client to us, we're all able to kind of coexist and work together to make sure that it's a smooth transition. And really, that should be your expectation, is if you're going to make a change, you should expect that your previous company is going to be very easy to work with. They're going to be willing to let that change happen without a whole lot of problems. They're going to work with the new company to kind of coordinate everything and make sure that it's a smooth transition, that there's very limited, if any, downtime or interruption or lack of gap in coverage or anything like that. And as long as you've maintained a decent relationship and you've continued to pay that old company, that should be your expectation, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's the key is, it's the transition. It's definitely something I think that most companies probably do not look forward to, but that should not be the reason that keeps that you decide to stay with a provider that just isn't working out. Ultimately, even if the current company doesn't play nice, you still can offboard from them and transition to a new company, right? And we've had to do that, unfortunately, but it can be done. So don't think just because your current provider isn't good and they won't play nice that's the reason that you need to stay. But yeah, I think that's it's the key is a good company is going to have a good process. We have a very detailed process for onboarding. It's one of the processes I take a lot of pride in because we've beat it up over the years, and there's a lot of touch points in there. From the handoff from sales to the project team to an internal meeting before we even contact the client. We're giving a timeline up front of what they should expect in terms of to get through the whole process. There's collecting the documentation. There's training of our internal service desk so that they feel prepared. The first time the first call comes in to answer a support ticket. It's training your company's end users, right? What's the best way to put in a support? Should they email a ticket versus when should they call? And if it's after hours, how do we get support? I think those are all things that are a good company has figured out, and we've done it multiple times. So, don't be afraid to ask for the onboarding process in your decision-making process, right? Any good company has this, and they should be able to tell you, without having to say, let me get back to you or let me think about that. If a company asks me that, and I get asked that frequently, I can bore you for 45 minutes of every step of the way of what I'm going to do and what's going to happen internally because I know it inside out. So I think that's key is again, just, having a thorough process, because when you do these onboardings and they go well, you should be able to repeat that every single time, and that's what we shoot for.
Yeah, absolutely. So the stuff that's going to be happening, through that transition period is, potentially a transfer of any documentation that the old company has, certainly passwords that have to be switched over and then changed and everything. And then obviously the removal of the old company's software, their antivirus, all of that, and then the installation of the new company's stuff. So that's really where the coordination between the two companies comes in to play. So you got to make sure that the passwords get transferred over if there's any documentation, but then making sure that there's not a long, at least, gap in coverage between when the old company removes their stuff and the new company puts their stuff on, because that could leave you open then to potential security threats. So you certainly want to make sure that the two are working together. And then really you should expect this whole process to take anywhere from probably 2 weeks to a month. Most companies are going to ask for 30 days to offboard because, they got to make sure that the licensing all gets transferred over properly and that they coordinate the removal and installation of software, all of that kind of stuff. So you should expect that to take, 2 weeks to a month, somewhere in there. But, really it should be a very smooth process. It should not really cause any downtime outside of maybe a reboot here and there just to remove a piece of software. But aside from that, there shouldn't be any downtime. There really shouldn't be any gap of coverage, and the two companies should very easily be able to work together. And it really you should be able to basically make that change and hardly feel like you made a change, except for the fact that now you're working with a different company.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And again, like you said, the vast majority of the companies here in this area, we do things are kept professional, and most of these go smooth. And ultimately, you never know when the scenario is going to be the other way, unfortunately. So you always want to make sure you're putting your best foot forward, not giving yourselves a bad reputation, because word of mouth spreads. So we rely heavily in this industry on referrals and recommendations of existing clients, and sometimes we get referrals from past clients. It's one of those things where no matter what, all the way to the end, most of the IT companies are going to keep it professional and make sure that the transition is smooth for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, we've had past companies that have come back to us, and like you say, we have had past companies that have given us referrals as well. So, and that's not the reason that we make it a very smooth transition. We do that because it's just the right way to do business, but it certainly doesn't hurt. It's nice to be able to keep that relationship going. And, even after you lose somebody, there's times that we'll talk to them here and there after that. And, if you burned bridges on the way out, you never can expect to have any kind of relationship with them moving forward. So it's just a bad way to do business.
Of industry, it's never a good idea.
Absolutely.
It's never a good idea. So, but yeah, I think onboarding is something that I feel like a lot of companies are hesitant. They know they would be better with another provider, but I feel like there's a bit of a hesitation because of the assumption of how difficult it may be. And the reality is if you partner with a good company, they will drive that process for you and make sure that uptime is kept and there's minimal impact to your company and your users. So the key is do your homework. Make sure you interview the new companies thoroughly. Understand their processes, understand the company. Do they have an actual office? Are they operating out of their basement? How long have they been in business? And when it comes to questions about agreement and support and what's included, there should be no hesitation when you get your answer. If there's any kind of hesitation, then you got to understand what that likely means is that you're getting into a relationship where things will be figured out as you go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, that's really what we wanted to talk about today is just kind of, answer some of the questions that we get as we're out talking with people, as we're onboarding new clients, as we're talking to prospects and such. And so hopefully that'll help, you, if you're in that position where you're thinking, is it time to start looking, and, kind of help you figure out maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And if it is, then, what you should expect. So appreciate you tuning in, and we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Interact with Tech Talk Detroit at techtalkdetroit.com or on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.